You're listening to an Anazao Ministries podcast.
What is the greatest Christmas movie of all time? Today, we are releasing a special Christmas thing for you guys. It's something that we recorded live around a week ago with host Joe Day, Brandon Knight, and Dan Stoyer. And they just discussed some of their favorite Christmas movies and favorite Christmas traditions and just had a fun time talking Christmas stuff. So we hope you all have a Merry Christmas and enjoy this recorded live conversation. Remember, since they recorded it live, this is going to be a lot more raw than some of our other stuff, but I think it's a good time.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
Oh, wow. That is a bit of a buzzkill.
Aren't we all a little disappointed that we're not Spider-Man? What a way to start off a live stream. What's up, guys? Welcome to a special holiday edition of Systematic Ecology. It's funny that you came in a Santa hat as well, Dan, because I made a joke to my wife about an hour before we were going to go live. I'm like, is it wrong to wear a Santa hat onto a Christian live stream? I feel like that might be wrong. And then next thing you know, we were running down to the dollar store to grab a Santa hat. So
Go figure. There we go. This one's comfortable though, so I don't mind wearing it. Nice.
Yeah, I'm surprising. This is surprisingly soft. I was expecting something that was not nearly as soft.
Nice.
So, all right, guys. Well, yeah, so this was originally supposed to be some bonus content for y'all, but we decided to go ahead and turn this into a stream. Hang out like the last time. We may end up with some guests popping in partway through. We shall see. But so Brandon and I did an episode centered around traditional Christmas movies. Like we're talking 50 plus years, the classics. So we wanted to kick this off by talking about some of those classics, but of a more modern age of Christmas movies. I figure we'll all just kind of go around and spitball. I will go ahead and get us underway with, I would argue, the GOAT of Christmas movies, A Christmas Story. 90s Kids
right.
Rejoice.
That is right.
TBS's 24-hour marathon every year. Nostalgia feels you will, in fact, shoot your eye out. But I don't. For me, you don't get out of having this conversation without talking about at least the first one. The second one, we don't talk about that. No. That's kind of like the sequel to Wizard of Oz. I say that, and most people are like, "Wait a minute, they made a sequel to the Wizard of Oz?" Exactly.
True.
What do y'all think?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so that is actually not just like my favorite of the modern Christmas movies, but that is my favorite Christmas movie, period. For two reasons. One, I think the film is just simple. Like, it's so relatable. At one point in time, every child wanted that one toy that we didn't know if we were going to get it, and we're trying every possible way to try and get it. And it finally happens. It's really simple. But the other reason why I love this movie is because the film is shot in Cleveland. So everything you're seeing is Cleveland. But the story, A Christmas Story, it comes from a book called In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash by a guy named Gene Shepard. He was a radio personality and an author who grew up in Hammond, Indiana, which is where I'm from. And the story of Ralphie are all these fictional retellings of his life story. So everything that you're seeing, again, in the movie is from Cleveland, but that elementary school where Flick sticks his tongue to the light post grew up 2 minutes away from it. If it wasn't for the fact that I was homeschooled, that actually would have been the elementary school I went to growing up. So that's
so interesting.
Yeah, it is so full of like hometown nostalgic vibes for me.
Yeah, I that might be that might in fact be one of the few places that I could imagine. I used to live in Cleveland for a cup of coffee for about 18, 20 months, something like that. I lived in Cleveland. And so they did it big. There was appreciation for that movie in that city. So that might be one of the few places I would imagine would celebrate harder that movie.
Yeah, we do have in Hammond every year. It's called A Christmas Story Comes Home. The Indiana Visitor Center has like these big window displays of scenes from the movie. One year, a couple of the actors and actresses from the film came to sign autographs. I met the bully, Scott Farkas. His eyes are yellow and terrifying. So,
oh, that's fantastic. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's kind of like, we talk about so many of these stories, and they all have these different stories have this same common denominator of it's an everyman story. It's an every kid story. The big buzz right now is Spider-Man. Spider-Man is the soup du jour right now. And can so many different countless generations resonate with this particular IP? It's because this is an IP that it transcends a person. It's a concept. It's a period. It's a snapshot of a period of time for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
What do you think, Dan?
I'm gonna get a lot of slack for this.
Are you the one guy who doesn't like that movie? Because it's a real love it or hate it.
I have not seen the whole movie at all. This is how popular the movie is because I know there's a BB gun. I know the line, "Don't shoot your eye out, kid," and I know there's a leg lamp, and I know near my grandparents' house, that same leg lamp was in their neighbor's house. I'm like, look at that leg lamp. It's from A Christmas Story, isn't it? But
we all have them in my hometown. There's just like everywhere in Northwest Indiana.
Yeah, I have a Christmas ornament of the leg lamp. It's one of those things that just transcends the movie. It's so funny.
Yeah, but it's just, it's a classic. I'm not going to deny that. I didn't know there was a second one, just like I found out a couple of years ago that there's The Sandlot, which is a classic, but then there's The Sandlot 2 and then The Sandlot 3, which...
Never seen.
Oh, there's a third? I knew there was a second one.
Yeah, Squints comes back and he becomes the manager of the team. I watched it one time and I'm like, this is dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, so many of those movies, and this is an episode topic in and of itself, but there's so many of those movies that just have cash cow sequels that should have never been made.
Yep.
You can't touch a classic sometimes, and you just got to let it go. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, Brandon, why don't you go ahead and go next? What is one of your favorite modern Christmas movies?
Well, outside of A Christmas Story, I would say another one of my favorite of the modern day classics is Jingle All the Way with Schwarzenegger and Sinbad. We actually just watched it this past Saturday. We just watched it for the first time this past Saturday. It's the first time my wife had seen it. I'd seen it a bazillion times. She had never seen it before, and it was giving her like low intensity anxiety attacks to watch like the trampling, the bouncy balls all up in the air and them all jumping for it. She's just like cringing the whole time. It's so funny.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, that's one of those movies that A Christmas Story, they it just has that yearly nostalgic plays on repeat sort of thing. Just was on, like I remember being on cable growing up.
Do you have a favorite line from that movie or part?
We're all big fans of the scene when he gets to the toy shop for that very first time and I'm looking for a Turbo Man, and they all just start laughing and pointing at him like, you don't know what you're doing right now. I also, anytime Phil Hartman starts talking, the creepy neighbor guy who's hitting on Schwarzenegger's wife, anytime he talks, I just think it's funny. Just hearing his voice is hilarious.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Oh,
yeah, he
man.
plays Slimeball to absolute perfection. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Oh yeah. And my wife's a big Star Wars fan, so as soon as little Anakin Skywalker shows up, she's, "Aw, he's tiny."
Fun facts, I did not know at all that like I never put it together that was little Anakin Skywalker until like years later after watching it. And I was I was on the younger side when it first when Star Wars, when the first episode 1 I should say came out. So like it's not like it was a part of my childhood and all of that kind of stuff, but yeah, I did not realize that was actually that was actually him.
Little pod racing Anakin. Dan, what's some of your favorite scenes from that movie?
Oh man, where do I even begin? I mean, I think if I had to pick one, my favorite scene is the second time Sinbad pulls out a package saying it's a bomb. And they all get to leave. And then the guy's like, I've been in the bomb squad for 10 years. And he rips it open. The bomb blows up. And Sinbad looks around like, that was a real bomb? This is a sick world we live in with sick people. He just that gets me every time.
The best part about this conversation too is that if someone watching this has never seen this movie, they have no idea what's going on.
Right.
Here.
The context for that is
so
ridiculous.
Easily.
Yep. Between the three of them, all three of their style of humor, the fact that it's a mix of Sinbad just being all over the place, and then the other two being more like deadpan and all of that. Like, oh man, it's just hilarious.
That's a good one. Okay, Dan, I took yours. So what's your backup?
Well, my backup, and I know my family's from New York, so I like pretty much any Christmas movie that has to do with New York. That's why I'm a big fan of Hawkeye right now. But for me, anyways, it's Elf. I mean, it's dumb, it's stupid, it's silly, but I think that's what I like about it. It's just a fun little ride of doing little antics throughout the movie, and it kind of, I don't know why it does, but it reminds me just of the way as a Christian we should have like a childlike heart after Jesus. Like Elf has a childlike heart going after Santa, and despite no matter what anybody says, he still believes in him and the power of Christmas spirit and all this really cheesy stuff. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Elf for some reason.
Nice. As someone who absolutely still loves building Lego sets, seeing those like beautiful displays in the toy store just get utterly destroyed. I mean, they're so cool, and then they get destroyed, just like rips my heart out every time.
That's so funny. Yeah, I'm a person that I absolutely grew up hating the movie Elf. I thought that movie was just so very, very bad. And like, I'm not gonna like, there's a whole queue worth of movies that would be sooner on my list, but I can appreciate just the innocent ridiculousness of it all. Like a light story that goes around just for the person who really digs on Christmas. Just put that on and go for it. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. Yeah. Like, absolutely. That's definitely a movie that I have come to, at least in what it represents. I can appreciate all of that. It doesn't help that I'm not like the biggest Will Ferrell fan. I think he's, a smidge bit, a lot overrated, like super overrated.
Most times.
But yeah.
I mean, I think I also like that one scene in the movie where it's like, work's your favorite. No, smiling's my favorite. No, work is your favorite. Be quiet now. Work. I'm like, oh, that sounds like real life, but
yeah, it does.
continuing on this, I gotta give another shout out to one of those movies. You know, we debated one of the movies of that just is debated whether or not it's a Christmas movie, but this is one. Shout out to you, babe. This is our Christmas tradition, but Die Hard. Okay,
okay.
So this is one of those.
Year.
Right. I'm not one of those people that's like, change my mind. You know what I mean? I'm not one of those types, but like for real and for true, Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Fight me. You know what I mean? Like it is a man saving the day for Christmas. You know what I mean? Like, how much more a Christmas movie short of him wearing a Santa hat do you want to get? You know what I mean?
That's awesome. I've only ever seen Die Hard once. It was one of those things where I'm like, I know I should watch this and I should just do it. And my roommate in college had all of them, except for the most recent, the fifth one or whatever? Whatever. And they're good. I really like that fourth one though, where he's kind of older. It came out in like 2008. I was in middle school or something.
Right.
I don't know if I could really fight on if it's a Christmas movie or not. Same with Gremlins. Like, if you want to watch Gremlins at Christmas, like, go for it. Whatever.
That's funny. So I never knew until you said that on in the episode that we recorded. I had no idea that there was a debate as to whether or not Gremlins was a Christmas movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was never really a big Gremlins fan, so you know
that kind of surprises me. For some reason, you seem like a Gremlins person. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I just never really got into it. But yeah, that's one of those. And so quick story for y'all, because part of this is for you guys to get to know a different side of us. So quick side note. Christmas 2 years ago. No, 3 years ago. I'm so bad with memories. Traumatic brain injuries are terrible for trying to recall dates. 3 years ago on Christmas, I proposed to my wife and then we watched Die Hard. So like, and I had never seen the full thing. So we watched it for the first time together. So yeah, it's one of those holds a special place. And it's just, I remember when I was a 14-year-old boy and all of the guns and explosion and action and all of those kinds of things. So my 14-year-old boy heart was like over the moon watching this movie.
That's awesome. And you just got engaged, which like adds on to it. So
yeah, absolutely. So what about you, Brandon? Next up.
I don't know if I could already call it a classic or not, because we just watched it. It came out very recently. We watched it for the first time last year. I think it's a Netflix exclusive called Klaus, Klaus. Klaus.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The animation is very unique. It's not like Into the Spider-Verse, but it's along those lines of, oh, this is very different. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the story is essentially a remake of Santa Claus is Coming to Town. You've got the guy who's like a post mail worker or a post office delivery guy, and he's in this like small town that's all like icy and cold, and he meets the guy who's basically Santa Claus there, Klaus, and it's just this really heartwarming Christmas cartoon story. It got snubbed at the Oscars. It was nominated for Best Animated Picture, which when it was nominated, I hadn't seen it. I didn't really know anything about it. That was the year that Toy Story 4 won Best Animated Picture. And having seen Klaus, like they totally should have deserved that. Better story. The animation is so much cooler. Pixar is just in the Academy's back pocket, I guess. I don't know. So check that one out. Like I said, it's a newer one. Check it out.
Yeah, I can always appreciate something that is visually gorgeous. Like when it comes to like animation and things like that, it might not be the thing that I would pick up and watch, you know, at a regular interval, but I can appreciate something that is very like eye-appealingly different, and I think that's a great way to say it. Is it's like Into the Spider-Verse, but only insofar as this is something different than what I'm used to animated wise.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you've never seen it, don't go out of your way to watch Toy Story 4. They should have stopped with the first one, maybe the second one, but the first one, come on, again, it's one of those movies you cannot catch lightning twice.
True. I think the second one is great. The third one is fine. But we get to the fourth one, and I'm like, why are we here? Why are we doing this? I mean, I know money, but like, come on, give me a good story. Anyway, we can bash them another time. We could do a whole episode.
How about you, Dan?
Oh man, if I have to pick another one, the one I always watched as a kid growing up, it'd be the Santa Claus. With,
Yes,
Tim Allen. Yeah, I mean, such a classic. Although looking back at it now, I mean, he became Santa Claus by killing or accidentally killing the other Santa. I think just hopping in the sleigh. Come on, Dad, we can. You never listen to anything I say. I wasn't a big fan of the kid, but I mean, I just loved the idea behind it, and it was just a lot of fun watching it and how I just loves how he like shaved his beard and then he got the beard back, and they think he's going crazy and they want to lose his rights to being a dad. And
it's actually a really dark movie when you start stripping away a lot of the Christmassy stuff. Like, it's a really heavy film, but when you're watching this as a kid, it's just like, oh, so that's how you become Santa Claus. I just got to knock the guy off my roof. Awesome.
Oh, right. We're too busy with all of the twinkly lights and the magic of it all and all of that to realize that, like, okay, so murder, divorce, you know what I mean? Loses his job, yeah. But like, so many, that's another one of those movies that, like, there's just so many quotable lines to it. I shave in the morning. In the afternoon, I look like this. You know what I mean?
Joe and I could definitely pull that off too.
Right.
And then he's in the job meeting, and I'll just have something small, and then he orders half the menu with like a double side order of everything else, and then he doesn't blame on the fact that it's not because I'm eating a lot.
It's like a bee
stung by a bee, Calvin.
Stung by a bee.
Yeah, it was a really big bee.
And what's crazy is, of course, there's a second one and a third one, and the second one's a lot of fun. But I mean, I was kind of calling them out, saying that he had to get married as part of the clause. I'm like, you think they would notice that on the card the first time around? Because they like the huge magnifying glass on it. And then the third one is just a weird.
I've never seen the third one.
Weird thing.
I like Martin Short, and I've never seen the third one. I did not care by that point.
Yeah, me too. I am a particularly big Martin Short fan. I think so much of his stuff is really, really hilarious. But like, for me, a lot of these movies that we're talking about came out when I was a kid. Like, I have very distinct memories of watching Santa Claus in theaters when it came out, sort of thing. Cool. So like, by the time it got to the third one, I'm like, this isn't it. Hashtag not my Santa Claus. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Too many clauses.
Yeah, absolutely. But so another one that I absolutely felt the need to mention is Home Alone.
Okay.
Home Alone is just, it's so good. And like, you realize that, like, just the things that are happening on the screen, it's like a Santa Claus, where like, there's a reason why there's fan theories out there that was Kyle McAllister, the kid's first name in the movie. Kyle. He grows Kevin.
Oh, that's right.
Grows up to become Jigsaw from the Saw movies. Like,
I've never heard that. I've never heard that.
I learned something new today.
Apparently, I watch too many horror movies. But yeah, no, there's a
Jigsaw. Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole fan theory that Kevin becomes Jigsaw. Because, like, you think about it, these elaborate booby traps that, like, he lights somebody's head on fire at one point in time. You know what I mean? Like, but yet, because of all of the ridiculous slapstick comedy in it, it's just too, you know what I mean? It's too good.
Yeah, we just watched on Netflix the episode of The Movies That Made Us. Haven't either one of you guys watched those on Netflix? They're like little documentary. No. They're little documentary episodes, 30 minutes long or so, of a lot of 80s, 90s films, and we watched the one on Home Alone. It was really interesting just hearing how it all came together. That's basically what those episodes are about, is how the movie goes from script to film and how it goes over. Chris Columbus and John Hughes working together. It was supposed to be a Warner Brothers film, but they pulled the plug because it was going to cost too much money, and Fox picked it right up because John Hughes was doing some like shady deal work behind the scenes. Like it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, there's so many of those weird stories behind, like, you look at the movie and it's like, I'm going to say innocent, but like innocent in the sense that it's one of those movies that for people of a certain generation you mention, and like the warm and fuzzies come in, like, the kid, and it's funny and it's slapstick and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. But then like it tends to be those kinds of movies that have the most absolutely ridiculous backstories to them.
Right. That's true. That's true.
Go ahead, Brendan.
I was going to say, I think for my third pick, I was going to say Home Alone, because I was surprised we got this far without saying Home Alone. I'm going to say Scrooged with Bill Murray.
Yes.
Because that is my favorite of all the Christmas carols. Joe, I think we've talked about this a little bit. It may have been on the classic Christmas movie episode that that final scene with Bill Murray, and he's doing the big spiel. When it finally clicks of like, I get it, I know what Christmas is about, and he's going through the big spiel. Like, that is the best Bill Murray acting ever. And there's just so many great lines, and there's subtle jokes in the background too. I love that type of humor where you kind of have to stop and observe everything to see what's going on. Like when he's in his office, his last name is Cross. And when he's in his office, if you notice, painted on the wall is supposed to be the definition of cross. And it says something you nail people to. Like,
oh man.
But it's just like that type of humor, and that Bill Murray dry sarcasm is so, I just love it. And I think all of his brothers are in it too, which is cool for a Christmas movie. That
is cool.
Nice.
Yeah, that's one of those, again, like growing up there, there were some movies that were just, and I was one of my big geekdoms is movies, and like what is now considered the quote unquote 90s like era movies, but like the 90s collection sort of thing. Like, because growing up, that was my childhood. You know what I mean? So for like things like Groundhog Day and Scrooged and things like that, there's a short list of Christmas movies, because I am officially like, okay, so confession time with the Saints, I am officially this year the annoying Christmas guy in my house. Wow. I never thought I would see the day that I would be the one that's like, let's do Christmas stuff and listen to Christmas stuff and all of that. But like, no, credit to my wife. She's coming along too. But I've tried to consolidate the Christmas movies to like the greatest hits. Like if we're gonna do this, let's go ahead and so I was considering, because like we talked about in the classics episode, A Christmas Carol to me is just so timeless in all of its storytelling and things like that. And like I came to that with that appreciation, like we talked about, with that 1930s version of like, you're basically watching a theater performance, but this is what a movie was at this point in time, was basically just a recorded theater performance and all of that. And so like I really had appreciation for that. And then like that layer of just Bill Murray chewing the paint off the walls, just acting with every ounce of his soul ridiculously, was just Chef's kiss, as far as that kind of like, as far as a version of that movie.
My brother Bradley and we crack up every time. We've seen this movie hundreds of times. We crack up every time when it's the Ghost of Christmas Future, the Grim Reaper, and he's in the casket, they're like cremating him, and then the elevator doors open and he's back and he's I'm alive, and it's the Hallelujah chorus starts playing. It gets me every time.
Yep.
And then the guy shows up with the shotgun. So nice.
Oh man, is that one that you've ever seen, Dan?
I haven't seen that one, but for me, I agree. Christmas Carol is such a timeless story. It's been done so many times. I mean, I've seen ones from the 20s that I actually like. But if I have to share two of them that really stuck with me, one was, I think it was in the late 70s, I want to say, 1979. It was where Henry Winkler was Scrooge, and it was called An American Christmas Carol.
Oh, interesting.
I know that. So it was taking that story and actually putting it in the American culture. So he works under like a fezziwig guy. Like I can't remember all the names in the story because they're all different.
Sure.
To modernize it, but he basically
Joe is frantically looking this up now.
Absolutely, I'm making a note for myself to look this movie up.
So basically, he works at like a furniture shop, and they try to create woodwork furniture from scratch. And he's like, "Why can't we do the assembly line, or like putting like this?" And he's like, "Americans will never want that." And like by the end of the Christmas Past part of the story, he by the end of the Christmas Past, he basically takes over that company and basically becomes the rich guy and forces the other guy to get out of business. And then it goes along the same path, just a modern day version of it. And it's just, it's a trip. it's a wild trip. Just like another Scrooge I like is actually from 1970. It's called Scrooge, but the main actor was Albert Finney. And it's a musical, so it's really cheesy, but at the same time, it's really dark at the same time, because after he sees his grave on the future, he actually goes to hell, and they show it. I was like, what is going on here? And like Marley shows up again and says, "I knew you would not listen to me. Just follow me to your quarters." And Lucifer is so proud of how you dude that he's gonna treat you the same way you treated Bob Cratchit. So he basically puts him in like a room that's an ice box with rats and ties him up with a chain and says,
"What?
You'll be the only person in hell that's freezing."
Wow.
It is. The first time I saw that, I'm like, man, this is dark.
Dan, every time we do an episode together, you bring up like the weirdest movies. And I'm like, these can't be real movies. That is intense.
It is. And I watched this when I was like 11, 12 years old. And
everybody gives me guff for watching stuff like Nightmare on Elm Street. Dan's over here watching this.
Well, I mean, there's that, and there's also in the Christmas Future part, like they sing a song that says "Thank you very much," and they're basically at Scrooge's headquarters, and Scrooge is like, "I didn't know all these people love me. This is so great." And he's like, and they can't see him, of course, because it's the dream, and he's looking that way, and they come out with the coffin, and he never sees it, and that's why they're cheering, is because he's dead. And the whole town's celebrating. I'm like, wow, that's intense.
Wow.
Because the other movies don't really portray like how bad like he was, like the fact that he died and people are like having a party and celebrating about it.
It does come up very briefly in the Muppets Christmas Carol. We just watched that one recently. When they get to the I almost said Days of Future Past. When they get to the Christmas Future part, the pigs, like that are supposed to be like his investment people, they're all talking about how they're only going to go if there's lunch, and they're glad he's gone and all that. But man, that is intense. And it's also called Scrooged. That one's called
it's
Scrooge
called
or something like that.
Yeah, okay. Scrooge from 1970, Albert Finney.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Finney.
Yeah, I think my love for Scrooged also is benefited from. So I was a kid when Muppet Christmas Carol came out. I would have been literally the target audience for it. None of the Muppet movies landed for me. Like I just was never really a fan of those versions. But
Okay.
you mentioned American Christmas Carol. Okay, so Henry Winkler is low key one of my guilty pleasure actors since I've been an adult.
Same here.
You know what I mean? Like, I watched Happy Days on reruns, like it was on syndication by the time I was a kid and all that. And so like I had seen the Fonz before, but like ever since I've gotten older and the things that I have seen him in, and it helps that I really like every time that I've heard an interview from him, he's just like the lovable grandfather that you wish he had, sort of thing. Like, but like he just is such a ridiculously talented actor that to see him in something like this, like him playing Scrooge, I'm absolutely going to be watching that this season.
You have to tell me what you think about it.
Yeah.
It's cool.
So what so for me, though, you know, one of the last ones I want to mention here is it's you know, when you think of Christmas, you think of these movies that you visualize and you don't really like, you know about the movie, even if you've never seen the movie. And for me, a big one that for so many years people talked about was National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. So many people would talk about this movie and like, I knew about like the big Christmas light and the porta potty thing and all of that kind of stuff. Like but I'd only seen it maybe 5 years ago for the first time. And I'll tell you what, I did not stop laughing from start to finish of that movie. It was just so ridiculous in all of its glory.
So I love Chevy Chase. A lot of my sense of humor comes from watching The Three Amigos way too many times.
That's awesome.
But for some reason, I don't know, maybe I've only seen Christmas Vacation once. And I don't know if I was just not in the mood for it or what, but that is the skippable Christmas movie for me. Maybe I just need to go give it another try. But for whatever reason, it like these things would come up and I'm like, cool. Julia Louis-Dreyfus is there. Cool. There's other things going on. Cool. I must have just not been in the mood for it when I watched it.
Yeah, it's something I've never seen either, so I have to check that out myself as well.
Yeah, that's a movie. I'll warn you both. Watch it with somebody who will appreciate the humor because it is very much like a party movie. Like it's something that if you're around friends or family or something like that, it's one that does much better with a room full of laugh track. Like people like laughing along with it, and it's like the whole experience and all of that kind of stuff. Watching it by yourself, I could see how that is one that's just kind of meh, this is a 80s Christmas movie and 80s comedy and all of that kind of stuff. But if you're a fan of movies like The Blues Brothers or Animal House or movies like that, definitely at least give it a shot because there's a lot of really situational humor. I grew up, for me, a lot of that comedic upbringing was Three Stooges. So everything that's like physical comedy like that, I really resonate with. So Chevy Chase in that movie being as physical as he was with the comedy with like the lights and getting shocked and this and that, like just hilarious.
Chevy Chase has the act of falling to an art form in a lot of his movies. It's like he could do stunt, like a class on how to fall. And I would take that class. I think for my final pick of the modern Christmas films, I would say Ron Howard's How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Okay.
I do prefer the animated one over this one. That one has more of the classic Christmas vibe to it for me. There we go. But I was actually not allowed to watch the Ron Howard version growing up. It creeped out my younger brothers. Jim Carrey the appearance of Jim Carrey creeped out my younger brothers. And also my mom was not the biggest Jim Carrey fan growing up. So it was a very long time before I saw like Ace Ventura or Dumb and Dumber or any of those movies. But when I first watched How the Grinch Stole Christmas, we were married and putting up our Christmas tree. And I just sat back and Cindy Lou Who starts singing Where Are You Christmas? And I didn't even know that's where that song came from. And I was like, oh, this is actually very significant. Like, good for you. You have a Christmas classic. You brought a new Christmas classic into existence with this film. And we all know that the scene when he's yelling into the echo, "You're an idiot. I'm an idiot." Like, and all that. Bills, jury duty. Like all of that. That whole scene is the funniest thing in the world.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a movie that just won't die. Like, I mean, they just had a cartoon one too with the Grinch, I think, a couple years ago. Yeah. And of course, the cartoon classic from the 50s or the 60s, whenever it was. I mean, I still love watching it every year.
Yeah, Brandon and I talked about the original for the classics, and I'd mentioned on there that I remember going to the theater with my dad to go watch this because we were huge. I was huge Grinch fan. Like I really, really loved that cartoon. But we went. I remember us going and seeing it, and like it so didn't hit with us because it just because it wasn't the animated one, because they didn't do the song in the same way, because of like, just honestly, its biggest sin was that it wasn't the animated one. Yeah. But that scene where he yells off into the cavern and I'm like young watching this, I'm like, oh, it was too funny.
Yeah. Yes. Love it.
But
Dan, how about you? Yeah.
Oh man, if I gotta say one more, all the good ones were already taken. So this one's more of a guilty pleasure for me. It's called "It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year." It was one of my mom's favorite movies, so I grew up watching it. It's a Hallmark movie, so all of them are like really, really, dumb, cheesy. This one I can actually tolerate because just like American Christmas Carol, Henry Winkler's in it. And he is easily the best part of the movie, and the dynamic he has with the characters is great. Like he was an uncle in the movie. The niece was the love interest of like the main character. And he's like, she was dating a guy, of course, that was a jerk and wasn't good for her. And he goes, why do you like this guy? I mean, he's an idiot. And she's like, well, he's sturdy. He's nice. He's sturdy. And then he replies with the line, wow, he sounds like a bookcase. That line gets me every year. I showed it to my wife last year, and she was laughing for at least 3 minutes when she heard that line. That never gets old.
That's funny. Yeah.
So Systematic Geekology is officially the Henry Winkler fan club. Moving on.
For me and Joe.
Yeah. What can you take from this? We're all big Henry Winkler fans. So I wanted to talk about, I feel like everybody has their Christmas traditions. It's one of those holidays that just like, whether it's a familial thing, something you grew up doing, that kind of thing, but like it is not the holiday season without this. And I'll go ahead and kick us off. When I was exiting high school and entering into college, I got super into Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Like,
love them.
Aside from all of the movies are definitely like, even at my absolute Scroogiest atheist point that I had in my life, those movies were still like nostalgia feels and all of that kind of stuff. But like outside of that, TSO, I had a streak going for a couple of years right after I got to, I was introduced to them, where I I would see them every single year, and they're a show. If you've never seen them live, it is an experience.
Yes.
When you go there, outside of just the music, the light show, all of that kind of stuff, they put on a full on performance, and I think that kind of helped bolster the love that I had for them, because I had gotten a chance to see them so many times. Actually, one of my wife and I's first dates in high school was going out to go see TSO. And yeah, it was so, for me, even, at the worst, and it helps that I am a musician. And so just the musical intricacies that that are involved in their shows just are so ridiculous that it bore in me this love of classical rock, of that style of music. And there are there's not too many super notable bands doing it, but there are a couple of bands and orchestras that are out there that just, if that's your thing, if you like the music without lyrics and just really, really stellar instrumentals and things like that with a hard edge to it, definitely check that style of music out. But yeah, so fun facts, our area has a TSO tribute band called 1224, and they perform on 1224. And so I had become friends with some of the my sister actually grew up with one of the members. But yeah, that was how into TSO I was there for a minute.
That's really cool.
Nice.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
For me, I would say a more recent tradition that has come for my life is Christmas date. So the first year that my wife and I were dating, we had been dating for 3 months or so, and she was in school online, and her classes were not going to end until December 22nd, December 21st. It was going to be right up against Christmas. And we had this conversation at one point. She was like, I know Christmas is more than the movies and the lights and the blah, 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 but I haven't gotten any of that this month. It's been studying and work and tests and quizzes. I just don't feel very Christmassy, that Christmas spirit thing. So I, wanting to be the world's greatest boyfriend, planned this date right after her classes ended. It was this all day, just Christmas packed day of stuff to do. And it was great. And we had a really good time. Joe, similar to you with Die Hard, that was the first time that my wife and I went to the movies together, and we saw Rogue One. And that has become one of our favorite Star Wars films, more on the upper side if we were to rank them out for both of us. What is cool about this tradition is that ever since then, it has continued. We went on it last Saturday, was our yearly Christmas date. And we have things that we do every year on Christmas date, but it fluctuates a little bit. For example, every year we end up having dinner at a Mexican restaurant. And it's been a different Mexican restaurant every year, but it's always Mexican food. And we always go to some place and get hot chocolate or a peppermint mocha or something, and then go look at Christmas lights. And we always go to different areas, and we always watch a movie at the end of the night. So it's a lot of fun. It helps bring those Christmas spirit vibes to us, but also makes us feel nostalgic for when we were an itty bitty boyfriend and girlfriend dating each other. So
that's funny. That's cool.
That's awesome. For me, whenever I share this one, I always get a bunch of eyebrows because it's unique. I guess just like me, it's something my grandpa started. So before we open gifts, we'd gather around the TV and watch the beginning of Ben-Hur, which is from the 1959 version, not the 2016 version, because the 1959 version actually starts with the Nativity.
Okay.
So a lot of people don't know that, but yeah, first 10 minutes is just the shepherds coming, seeing Jesus being born, having the star go above, and for the time, it's really, really cool. And then, of course, we sing Jingle Bells, read the Christmas story, and then line up in order of when we were born. So as I got older, I kept getting further back in the line, and I'm like, you know what, it's all good. It was really fun, and just looking at Ben-Hur. Of course, every year I would yell after the nativity was done. I would say, "Can we put on the chariot race now? Let's put on the good part of Ben-Hur."
I want to watch Charlton Heston ride a chariot.
That's right. And then, fun fact, just about that movie Ben-Hur is that the budget for the movie was $15 million, and the box office got $147 million. And the film that was made in 2016, the remake Ben-Hur, the budget was $100 million, and the box office only got $94 million. So that just blew my mind, seeing those numbers, and how something from a long time ago just destroyed. Even though we got better effects and CGI, and which can be overused sometimes, but still
interesting.
So two things. One, that it goes to show you how popular that movie is. I had no idea. Like, you saying that was the first time that I had ever heard that they remade Ben-Hur. Like, what a random movie.
It was
just okay. Like, somebody had too much money on their hands and decided to do something about it.
Yeah.
Your whole response, Dan, I want to say, is probably the most Dan answer that you could have absolutely given. Like,
yeah,
there's something totally unsurprising about everything you just said.
And I love it how it's just the first part. We're not going to watch the whole rest of the movie. We're not even going to put on like a traditional Christmas movie. We're just going to watch the first, whatever it is, 5 minutes, 10 minutes of Ben-Hur. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you got to imagine, like you said, that's especially for its time, there's not a lot in the way of like depictions like that. You know what I mean? In that same kind of way. So like, if you know that you can find a thing at a particular place, I can see the logic behind it.
Oh, yeah.
Super random, but
yeah, it is random. I like getting the looks from it when I say it, but yeah, it was totally from my grandpa, and he passed away, I don't know, like about 5 years ago. So, So, I mean, it's something we stopped doing a little bit because with the extended family, but I think I might bring it up again this year and be like, hey, well, we're not watching the whole movie though, even though, I mean, it's 5 hours about, so I'm not going to watch the whole movie, but I might skip forward to the chariot race myself and like, all right, you do see some people die.
Right. That can be your twist on the Christmas tradition. Watch the first 5 minutes, then the chariot race, but nothing in between.
Agreed.
That's great.
Oh man. So Brandon,
you
want to go ahead? You do such a good job of teeing me up. We get to come together, and we have this common shared belief system that unites us. And yes, it is. We talk about geekdoms and we laugh, and it's a good time, absolutely.
Yeah.
But like, we get to focus on the most beautiful thing to ever happen to mankind during this time,
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So I want to go back to A Christmas Story for a second, because again, I love it. And again, one of the reasons why I love A Christmas Story is because it's simple. It's simple. Yeah. Ralphie wants a BB gun. The end. That's it. That's all it is. And I think it's a little,
no, for real. It's the story of a small child that wants that gift that keeps getting told, you're going to shoot your eye out, kid. Yep. And then like, spoilers, he gets the gun. And you know what happens? He almost shoots his eye. He almost shoots his eye out. But the movie, it has its quirky moments, like Flick sticking his tongue to the light post, and some other just like the Santa Claus scene with the, they're like horribly obnoxious elves. But the movie itself is very simple. And I always love it's like one of the last scenes, like within the last 2 minutes. It's Christmas evening. Ralphie and his brother Randy, they're both in bed. He's got his BB gun. Randy's got, I think it was a blimp, was like the big, like a toy blimp. Is what he wanted. The house is dark. There's this beautiful glow off of the Christmas tree. And I think like Silent Night is playing in the background. And the parents are just kind of sitting on the couch, and they're looking out their big front window. And it's just those big, that picture perfect giant
snowflakes are falling. And it's just a very peaceful, calm final scene. There is beauty in simplicity is what I'm going for here. And when it comes to the Christmas story of Jesus, the Christmas story, it is a beautifully simple story. Obviously, it gets complicated at times. We're all theologians here. We could go for days on the whole dual nature, fully God, fully man aspect of Jesus. But the story itself is very simple. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who is Christ the Lord. It's a very simple story. And I think there's beauty in that. I'm a traveling preacher. It's one of my part-time ministry gigs alongside with podcasting. And so I've preached a handful of Christmas sermons, and I'm sure, we got a couple pastors on the hosting rotation here. I'm sure there's pastors watching this or listening to this. And there's this almost temptation to try and make the Christmas story more appealing, different. There's always a hook, because the story doesn't change, but you have to talk about it every year. So, you have to present it a little, we're going to wrap it up in a different package this year, but it's the same story. And I really think this is a message. I work in retail. That's like my full-time vocation. So for me, getting into the Christmassy spirit doesn't happen really until I clock out on Christmas Eve. It's just rough, and it's been rough this past week especially. Mm-hmm. And the message I have been preaching to myself is the message I think a lot of people need to hear right now, that Christmas is simple. The Christmas message is a simple story of hope and peace and joy coming to us in a manger. You know what I mean? And in a world right now where, COVID stuff is ever changing. The rules are always changing and fluctuating. We've got people that for the past 2 years have not been taking care of themselves with their mental health. They've just been draining themselves in Netflix and TikTok and listening to podcasts. Keep listening to our show. But they have not taken care of their actual emotional, spiritual needs, just been drowning out with the noise. I think what we really need right now is the very simple Linus on the stage, looking down the camera, for unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who is Christ the Lord. What do you guys got on that?
Okay, so first off, not to break kayfabe or anything, but you have outdone yourself with a different kind of. You went with Charlie Brown first, and I didn't realize that you were going to be able to one up yourself with using Christmas Story as the hook, bro. Okay. So
I'm getting more used to this. I'm settling in more on this type of stuff.
Right. So honestly, okay, we came into a little over 2 years ago, and all the nonsense and all of the drama and all of the everything, right? None of us, the thing that doesn't get talked about is none of us came into there at 100%. It's not just the baggage from the last 2 years that we're contending with. It is all of the baggage that we walked into 2020 with.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Yep. And to take it back to the movie, there's chaos and there's things, and Ralphie almost shoots his eye out, and there's so much stuff going on in this movie, surrounded by this one picturesque scene where the camera pans out, all is quiet. You know what I mean? Everything is peaceful. Everybody got what they wanted. And in a way, we all get what we wanted in that regard. We can have peace. That is the story. Yeah. Like you said, Charlie Brown, Linus staring down the camera, with everything else going on and all of the chaos that life brings into this time. And trust me, I am the type of person, I hated Christmas. I hated it growing up because it wasn't anything other than an excuse for drinking and drugs and chaos and wounds. That was what I was affiliated with. There was no love. There was no peace. There was no hope. There was nothing. None of that. Yeah. And I remember looking at my uncle and saying, I hate Christmas. I will always hate Christmas. No, you won't always hate Christmas. You'll hate it until you can create new memories. And between having my come to Jesus moment and developing that relationship, and over the last several years since having that come to Jesus moment, developing that relationship and coming to really and fully understand what we celebrate, regardless, and he wasn't really born that this and that, whatever. It's the day that we choose to set aside to celebrate that fact. End of story.
Right.
And so on top of that, being able to build new memories with my wife and things like that, we get to rejoice about a thing that should make you jump up out of your seat. But at the same token, in all of it, in all of the chaos and nonsense and noise and stuff, and trust me, like coming into this as part of the mental health community is a whole different ball of wax when it comes to all of the spinning plates that just naturally crop up as a byproduct of this time, let alone every other thing that can take that. To be able to focus and just stop and just focus on the birth of the Savior. Yes, we can get into the thises and the that's and all of that kind of stuff. But when you strip it away, what you have is the most beautiful thing to ever be introduced into a broken world. And that is hope, my friends. Yeah. That is peace. That is love. Yeah. The thing that we can hang our hats on, the thing that we have absolute resolution in. And I know for gospel that there's tons of us this year that need to hear that. Yeah. That need to hear that the simplicity of what this season represents, what this means, you know?
Oh yeah. I totally agree with you guys. I know at least for my life personally, the times where I felt low or the times where I didn't feel close to God is when I took the focus off of the simplicity of what Jesus gives us and put it on myself.
Right.
And made problems that didn't seem big, huge. And I like that you just brought up the point that it's simple. It's simple. And that's frustrating sometimes because we think life shouldn't be that simple.
Yep.
I mean, problems happen in our life, and we all, just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you're still going to struggle with issues. You're still going to struggle with things that you used to before you were saved and things like that. But knowing that we have that hope and that joy, despite of what we do, is just awesome. It's awesome.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I've had, you know, in what I do, God has blessed me with being somebody that others feel like they can turn to when in discussing things, because I think partially because I've seen so much, but knowing that getting an inside track of the struggles and the issues and the really the stuff and the things of it all that some of my brothers and sisters go through, it is a reminder that, like, it is a giant misnomer if anybody presents themselves or thinks, because I used to be this person, so I've seen both sides of this fence. Christians still struggle all the time. And as the church, we can go into a whole conversation about how we need, if we are ministers, if we are teachers, if we have a voice with our local people, friends and family. It doesn't matter what version of this. It's not just for us broadcasters. It's not just for us pastors. It's for every single person that has a sphere of people around them that this qualifies for. You know what I mean? And so when we have to be aware that every single one of us has our struggles and our issues, but that's the gimmick. That's the hope. That's the thing. You know what I mean? I used to hear people talk about, you know, because I grew up doing the whole Sunday school thing and all this kind of stuff. So I would hear, you know, just let your light shine. Just let it shine. This little light of mine. Okay. that's a real quaint thing that you can put on a Sunday school pamphlet. But like, I'm like, what is this? What is this nonsense? Then I realized after I actually had my come to Jesus moment, that thing that separates us, that gives us something different. Because like you said, especially for people like us, right? We are all, scholars and theologians here. We are all people who give thought and give purpose behind our actions, how we interact with the Gospels, how we interact with doctrine and theology and different things like that. So we could sit here and we can go hours and hours about high level 301, 401, 501 level stuff when it comes to this kind of thing, if we wanted to. But that's all window dressing. That's all the trimmings. We get to do that because God has blessed all of us with eyes to see and ears to hear. But none of that guarantees us safe passage. We are going to get beat up. We are going to get hurt. That's going to be the thing, right?
Yeah.
But that's the thing that separates us, is the sound of victory blaring deep down from our spirits.
Yeah.
Love it.
Love it back.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the temptation, especially at Christmas time, is to pack it full of stuff too. We're, especially like when we were younger, we had the school Christmas play, and then church had a Christmas play, and it's off to these people's house and watching all these movies and listening to all this music. And it's just like we pack it full of stuff. And I've almost found that like I love Christmas music. I love all these movies that we've talked about today. Maybe not some of the ones Dan brought up, but most of the movies most of the movies that we talked about today, like I love these movies. Like but what I've found is now is that the slowing down and the let's just reflect on something. I think I talked about, we're going through our first Advent reading, and it's been really good just studying Christmas hymns and these little devotionals related to Christmas hymns. And doing that has put me more in the Christmas mood than almost anything else, more than decorating and baking and all this other stuff. But just these simple, 5-10 minutes together, reading these passages, reading these songs, and just being together with God for a little bit. That has brought me so much closer to that Christmas spirit that we love than anything else this year.
It's so interesting that you say that, because for me, Advent was always chocolate calendars, the little chocolate candy calendar things.
Yeah.
And then you forget about it, because in my household growing up, Jesus wasn't it was kind of a thing peripherally, but wasn't like any kind of personal relationship sort of thing. So it just became about the chocolate. So it wasn't this year has been the first year that I have been purposeful about entering into the Advent season and exploring that. I've been camping in Isaiah, the Gospels, and for me, I include Acts in the Gospels because it's like the sequel, if you will, of the Gospels.
Sure.
And then Revelation, and just going through different translations, but in those books particular, because it's the prophecies of the coming king. And you see a very clear reflection between Isaiah and Revelation. And just spending time purposefully sussing out what these different concepts look like, not just in the hope of the world that came, not just in the hope that has not yet to come, in the hope that we get to carry around like a precious treasure every single day of our lives. Amen. You know what I mean? And that is something that has seriously cut through. And I came into this season with every single reason not to care and not to want. And that was the thing, like you said, that really turned the table for me.
Awesome.
Nice.
I'm glad to hear that too.
Yeah.
Oh. So, all right, guys. So, we said some of this at Thanksgiving, but it bears repeating again. First off, Merry Christmas. May the joy of the Lord be with every single one of you. But seriously, again, thank every single one of you for those of you that join in and tune in. Otherwise, we would just be nerds talking into a microphone and all of that kind of stuff. I've been in this. I think I said this in Thanksgiving. I've been in this podcast game for years now, and I've never seen a community rally as quickly as you guys have come around us. And I still get stunned with how much engagement and how much interaction there is and stuff like that. So seriously, thank you guys.
Yes, thank you all. Merry Christmas. It's been so fun. I've had a lot of fun these past few months, engaging on social media, getting to know all of my co-hosts. Like, this has been great doing this holiday season with you all.
So yeah, for me, just Merry Christmas, guys. And same with me, just been an honor talking with everyone in this group, as well as just meeting the other hosts. I mean, who knew that a pandemic could cause us to a lot of people start podcasting, and from all over the states too. That's just what's mind blowing. Which I mean, I'm from the Central Time Zone, so I'm an hour behind everybody else. But oh well, I guess it fits me.
Yeah, and I seriously, here's to the new year. You know, I think for me, the way everything's gonna land, I think this might be the last time that you guys hear from me this year. And so, you know, it's been a blast, but also there's so much more to come. Coming down the pike next year, getting a chance. I feel like I've only worked with a handful of the hosts, and so getting a chance to work with the rest of the group. Very excited.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
So, with that, bye. Mwah, mwah, mwah. No, just kidding. I've always wanted to just end a live stream super awkwardly like that, but no, for real. Again, right. So with that, again, Merry Christmas. This has been fun. Drop comments down below. Share with us your favorite modern Christmas movies. And if you have stay tuned to the end, what I want you to do is drop a comment down that says leg lamp. With that, Merry Christmas, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Merry Christmas,
Merry Christmas, everybody.
This was an Anazao Ministries podcast. If you enjoyed this show and would like to learn more about our network, be sure to check out the Anazao Ministries podcast network.